As students will be writing their rough draft this week over their famous person and contribution, let's talk about some important considerations as we write. First, the students need to be able to consider an audience. I understand that I am your evaluator, I'm the person that grades your essay, but I am not necessarily the person toward whom you are writing this essay for. You're not going to direct your essay literally at me, Dr. Ortiz, and be able to explain that I am your third person. As you are writing, I may have noted in some of your constructive feedback for Essay 1, it's usually appropriate for students to write in academic writings in third person. Third person is not using the pronoun of I, me, or my. It is not using the pronoun of you or your. None of those are going to be used. Students need to be able to direct their essay toward a third party goer, like he, she, it, they, them, our, their. So specifically, you might target a particular audience that relates to the essay that you're writing. So let me give you a couple of examples so that you can be able to think about who you particularly want to be able to gear your essay toward, and then stick with that audience that you're gearing your essay toward. So you might just mention people in general. People that love celebrities, young Americans. Since my example in the synthesis chart with Matthew McConaughey, I might actually have my audience toward moviegoers. So think about who you're writing about and be able to identify an audience so that you can keep that particular audience as your third person that you reference throughout your essay. Alright? So, second, you need to have a consideration of the purpose. What is your purpose for your essay as you're writing? Are you attempting to inform your reader of just about your famous person and then go into their contributions and then further into the secondary contributions, whether it be charities or however? Are you persuading them? Are you trying to persuade them of the wonderful or positive things that your person may have done? Last, I highly doubt it, but are you trying to entertain your reader? Entertainment really is going to be looking at something, I would say, not necessarily more fictional, but likely more enthusiastic or passionate wording. I highly doubt you're going to be using that type of purpose for this particular type of essay, but it does exist. So specifically, whichever type of purpose you feel like it is for your particular essay that you're writing for me, you really need to be able to decide about it. A last consideration is looking at the tone of writing that you will use. Your tone of writing is going to look at the types of words that you use to be able to express, I don't want to say an opinion, but the wording can be like a positive connotation, maybe a negative connotation. Perhaps you're being very assertive with the wording that you're using to be able to persuade your reader if that is the type of purpose that you carry. Perhaps if you are informing your reader merely of your famous person and their contributions to their field as well as their contributions to charity, perhaps you're just taking a very informative, neutral tone. You need to be able to decide the tone that you plan to carry, and these are all done with the questions that you ask yourself as you write, as well as you go back to revise and edit. So as you go back and revise and edit, which we'll do next week after we write the rough draft, all three of these considerations are probably really need to turn around to be questioned. Who have I decided my audience to be? Have I referenced that audience throughout my essay to keep my audience focused and clear and not reference first or second pronouns? Second, have I maintained what I said I was going to do for my purpose? Have I informed my reader? Have I persuaded them? And whichever one of those types of purpose that you decide, are you actually using a particular tone of writing in that purpose itself? So these are the considerations you really need to help mold and shape your essay as you're writing your rough draft. You also need to make sure, in the synthesis chart itself, I made sure that I discussed what the essay assignment was, but I just want to reiterate that you do understand. The essay assignment is that you're choosing someone famous, you're researching the path he or she took to achieve fame. I am not asking for a biography. I have no desire to receive a biography of a famous person from any student because that's not what this essay assignment is asking you to do. And if you switch it into a biography, you have misdirected your essay. you need to evaluate and determine if you have given me this person's life story, because that's not what I want. I don't, no criticism to your famous person, but I'm indifferent to their birthplace. I'm indifferent to their parents and where they went to school, unless that had anything to do with their fame whatsoever. And the way that we structured our particular essay and our 3 body paragraphs is the only thing that you're referencing to their achievement of fame, what point did they achieve fame, or what point was the pinnacle of their actual career, is that first body paragraph. Your second and your third body paragraph are not necessarily referencing their fame. You are referencing their contribution. You're referencing how they changed their field, or their industry, how they changed the world at large, maybe by how they've given or donations that they've done. I do not want a biography, because it will be an essay that will come back to you as a request to rewrite. Second, students are asked to be able to and expected to write MLA format. Again, MLA format is not going to go away. This is a standard writing format that's carried in community colleges as well as 4-year universities. So you need to begin carrying a comfort zone with the heading that you're going to be required to do, as well as the font, the spacing, all right, with the left flush and indenting, having a title. It is very easy to go to YouTube and type in MLA format and be able to type in exactly what you're looking for to make sure that you do it. Students are required to have 3 quotes that follow the quote sandwich method. Now, this is something that was spoken about last week, in which students were required to read in their textbook in Read, Write, and Connect about this particular technique. What happens oftentimes is students, as they are writing, they'll use a quote to hopefully be able to give some type of evidence, using that quote as evidence. And oftentimes the writer, I don't really think on purpose, but inadvertently will just say, here's the quote, you as the reader, I hope you figure out what it means. As a strong writer, you can't do that. We can't just give a quote to a reader and hope that they figure out what it means, how it applies, and where they should go with it. I did not say where those 3 quotes had to come from. It could come from all one article if that is where your strong and evident come from. But using the the quotation sandwich technique, remember, this is several different steps. When you use a quote, you introduce the quote, you say in the article, you give the title of the article with quotations around the title. The author said. Then you give exact word for word what the quote is. Okay, then you end using MLA in-text citation. Your next sentence right after that quote is where you as a writer are explaining what the author means by that quote. So you may start that sentence out, the author means, okay, that would be where you go on and you explain, what does the author mean by this quote? The sentence that follows that is where you make you write a sentence that gives a relationship between the quote and the main idea that you have for that particular paragraph. So this is where you're making sure that what you've given as evidence to support your main idea is fully explained and has a relationship with your main idea. There is no ifs, ands, or buts in regard to the reader having to figure it out for themselves, because that's not your reader's job. It's the writer's job to make sure that everything is very clear and it's fully understood, and that is done by concise, clear writing. So I wanted to make sure that students are clearly in the know of what they're expected to do. So very quickly, I just wanted to very quickly overview. I talked about in the Blackboard lesson what's called a chicken scratch outline. And I know that sounds kind of funny, but when students usually go into any type of essay writing, whether it be the TSI test or whether you're from my class, a formal outline is good to use because it gives you very structured, guided outlining. But practically speaking, most students really don't do a formal outline. Practically speaking, most students are going to do what's called a chicken scratch outline. They're literally just going to write down a few keywords, phrases, outline their structure, and make sure that they keep with that structure. And that's okay, so long as you fully understand. So I have an image here of what I used, my students and I, in a face-to-face class. We actually did a chicken scratch outline, and we just wrote it down. It took probably 5 minutes, and everyone was like, okay, I understand what my structure is. So very briefly, we'll talk about the structure. Your first body paragraph of a, your first paragraph of a 5-paragraph essay is going to be your introduction. And the very first sentence of that introduction is going to be a hook sentence. This is going to be an intention grabber. How do you pull your reader in? Some type of statement, quote, maybe even a question that pulls your reader in that's related to your topic. Pull them into your topic itself. Then, right after you give the hook or the attention grabber information, you're going to give some biography. You're going to give, not biography, but background information. This is where you can give some of the biographical information of your famous person. I don't want a lot. I'm really honestly talking about 2 to 3 sentences. And that means you have to be very brief and concise with what you have to say. If your introduction paragraph is excessively long, you've probably given me too much. Again, I'm not asking for a biography. I may not know about your person. I am your reader, okay? And so I may not know anything, so it's your job to be able to give me some background on this person. The very last sentence of an introduction paragraph is going to be your thesis statement. Now, your thesis statement, it has to have your topic, has to have your main ideas, which we've talked about, and it has to have your tone of what you plan to use. All right? So, based off of whoever your famous person is, the 3 main ideas we talked about, all right, so their fame, their contribution to their industry, and likely their contribution to the world, and then the tone that you've decided to use or claim, okay? So then you go into your body paragraphs. Now, all of your body paragraphs are pretty much structured the same way, except that your main ideas, they're obviously going to be different from one to the next. So let's just talk about body paragraph 1, and obviously your main idea is going to change between the second and the third. So your first body paragraph is how your famous person, how they achieved fame. So your first sentence of your body paragraph 1 is going to be your topic sentence. This is where you pull in your topic, who's your famous person, the main idea, which is going to be how they achieved fame, and then your tone. So those pieces have to be inside of a sentence. It's going to be a very general, basic sentence, but include those pieces. Then inside of your supporting details, this is where you're going to explain how your famous person, how they became famous. If you use a quote within this body paragraph, because remember you have 3 quotes you have to do, and you have to use that quotation sandwich technique. You can use them wherever you want. It doesn't matter to me, but you just have to have them there. I mean, you've got to have a present in your essay. So if you happen to use the quotation sandwich technique that we've talked about, remember to be able to, however you're trying to explain how they came to fame, you introduce it, the author said, give the quote, explain what the quote means, explain how it relates to how they achieved fame, make sure that you've given the appropriate information so it's fully understood how your person came to fame. All right? If you have more than, honestly, 8 sentences in your body paragraph 1, you've said too much and you really need to shorten it. Okay? So then the last sentence in your body paragraph is going to be a conclusion sentence. Students need to use a transition word. A transition word is a word that kind of signals to your reader that you are ending this paragraph, ending this main idea. So you could use overall, all in all, to sum up, in conclusion. Any of those words are good key words, good signal words to help your reader. Now each of your body paragraphs, the 2 that follow after this, because you have 3 full body paragraphs, they're going to be structured in the same way. They just vary based off of the main idea. The very last paragraph of your 5-paragraph essay is going to be your conclusion. This is where you summarize all of your main ideas. What are the main ideas that you've given? What information has it provided? What can be an overall thought? And last, what is your advice? What's the purpose that your reader came to your essay? What should they take with them? So you're looking at 4 strong sentences. You have several that summarize, and then the very last one that gives some recommendation or advice to your reader of what they should take home with them in regard to the actual essay itself. Now remember, I do not want students using I, me, or my pronouns. I do not want you using you or your. Unless you're asked to write a reflective essay, it's not appropriate, and I'm not asking you to write that type of essay. I'm asking you to write an academic essay in the structure that we've talked about. If you have any questions or concerns, please contact me.